Maybe we should throw this one in turbo mode, Jordan, because they did go fast over the weekend at the first ever MLB Speedway Classic between the Braves and the Reds. These two teams played a game, almost kind of two games, played a game at the Bristol Motor Speedway in Bristol, Tennessee, a NASCAR track. A custom-built field was constructed in the infield, I believe is what it is called in NASCAR, in the middle of the track, for the purpose of, as I understand it, setting the record for the most fans at a regular season game.
And I believe they succeeded with over 90,000 people in attendance. That was the official number. Now, because of how this unfolded, I'm not exactly sure how many were there on Saturday when the game was rained out and suspended after one inning, and how many came back and showed up on Sunday when they finished the game. That said, it sure looked like a lot more people than are normally at a Major League Baseball game. And ultimately, partially due to the rain, partially due to what we understand to be some difficult logistics, as you can imagine, for a Major League Baseball game in Bristol, Tennessee, for 90,000 people, was a bit of a messy time. There were a lot of people that were complaining online about some of the logistical kerfuffles involving a lack of food, involving a lack of organization, involving a lack of communication and command transportation, and all these things that you could kind of see coming for an event of this magnitude. That said, again, we were not there. We're going based off of some of the reports from fans and media that were there. I love this idea. I think that we want baseball to continue to try and do new stuff. I think this was an unbelievably ambitious version of that, as we saw, was pretty difficult to execute, rain or not. That said, I don't want this to discourage the league from continuing to try new stuff.
I agree.
And this was a hell of a spectacle. And I know the rain impacted, I'm sure, the broadcast and how it was received, whether you were there or not. But the scenes were amazing. I mean, it was ridiculously cool to look at on television. And unfortunately, it sounds like the experience on the ground was compromised to some degree. But I do appreciate the effort.
Couple thoughts here. Number one, the Bristol Motor Speedway knows how to have 90,000 people show up in the middle of nowhere and accommodate, right? That happens twice a year, I believe, when they have the races there. The issue seemed to be you got to have enough food. That is, I know that maybe the rain complicated things. Having enough food feels like a base level accommodation. I would say that starting the game and playing an inning on Saturday in those conditions felt like something of a sham. That was outrageous and ridiculous. I know that they wanted to get the game in. I understand that. But if Sunday was an option, they should have just banged it earlier. It was unfortunate that it was so empty on Sunday because obviously so many people left because they thought the game was going to be Saturday and it started. And I loved the NASCAR, the car that drove around the track whenever someone homered. Maybe it was just for when Eli White homered because he homered twice and no one else homered in the game. This was cool. Keep doing stuff like this, MLB. It is appreciated. It is interesting. It breaks up the season. It brings the sport to places that don't usually get to see the sport. There's a novelty to it. It is interesting. I would just say, even though you got a C+ on this paper, does it mean you should quit writing?
Yeah, and I think too that I know there are definitely some Reds fans and even non-Reds fans are like, man, the Reds got screwed by this situation. They score early in the game on Saturday. They end up losing on Sunday. They lose a series at a very important part of their schedule. Now, we're not going to talk about what happened on Thursday, but because it was somehow outdone by what happened with the Yankees and Marlins and Pirates and Rockies. But the Thursday game was outrageous too, and the Reds end up losing that one, so they lose this series. But I do think that most of the Reds players will still tell you, as messy as logistics was for them too, I'm sure, even if they were, I'm sure, treated much better than the fans, I think a lot of them would say, hell yeah, we do that again. That is a once-in-a-lifetime situation. And as you say, the breaking up the schedule has pros and cons for sure, but I don't think that any of the players, even though maybe some grumbling behind the scenes because they do have to get back and play the Cubs, I think, in Wrigley today. And that sucks that they didn't have that off day yesterday. So that's a little bit of a tight turnaround,
Yeah.
but it was a really cool spectacle. And like you said, I hope that this doesn't discourage them. And maybe the going for the attendance record should not always be the goal here. And I know that's not the only reason why they did it there. They're obviously playing the first major league game in Tennessee and a lot of all kinds of other history, which was cool. But yeah, we can't really say much more than that, other than that it seemed to be a bit of a mess. And the Braves end up taking this series in very, very weird fashion.
Did you know that even though this looked enormous, this is technically a short track?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, how many stadiums could we fit in some of the bigger motor speedways? I'm sure you could have multiple. You could do a whole tournament. You could we could start doing, just do the whole. You could have done the bubble in the infield of one of the larger racetracks. But it's funny I mentioned the bubble. The COVID is really the only time I've gotten into NASCAR is because it was what was going on, but I don't remember anything about any of those tracks. So I cannot speak confidently on any of it. So there was a lot of other weird stuff going on during this series, which maybe we'll cover later this week in UGLA. But we are going to move past it for now and get to the other regular season baseball games that happened in normal baseball stadiums in front of regular sized crowds. And let's go up to anything else on the Speedway Classic, or can we go to Cleveland?
I just want to say the story about Lion Richardson flying on Rob Manfred's private jet was hilarious and outrageous, where the Reds basically needed an extra arm, and Lion Richardson, who they were bringing in, had to get into Bristol at a very odd time at a weird hour. And so Manfred was like, I'll send the plane.
But apparently they didn't do that for Hurst and Waldrop, who then ended up pitching much better. So I don't know. All weird stuff